KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now. The bromance between President Donald Trump and Elon Musk seems to be over.
I'm not thinking about Elon. I just wish him well.
The president told NBC News that if Elon Musk funds Democratic candidates, he will face very serious consequences. It's the latest in a string of back-and-forth threats, comments, and tell-alls on social media between the two. New measles numbers are out. The CDC says there are now over 1,100 confirmed cases in the United States. They say 4 new cases were found in Texas. That's where doctors say the outbreak began. The Secretary of Defense says the U.S. Marines are gearing up to help local police in Los Angeles control anti-ICE protesters. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom calling that move deranged. Black Mayor Karen Bass says she doesn't think it's necessary and that the LAPD can handle the protesters. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter. But I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains. We gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I like the waves. I'll rise up in spite of the
KBLA Talk 1580, our special here to talk about what's happening in Los Angeles right now as Donald Trump has sent National Guard troops among protests pushing back on ICE raids in our city, although I might add there is no widespread violence of any kind. Tavis Smiley is here in studio, as is Dr. Neek Corte, Adrian Shropshire, and attorney Dion Raymond. We're joined and we'll be speaking shortly with columnist Ruben Navarrete. We are joined right now by poet Luis Rodriguez, who's also an activist and a gubernatorial two-time candidate. A lot of conversation here in the studio in these internet streets, Luis, about how Latinos have supposedly turned towards Trump, and some folks are saying, well, are you changing your opinion now? Do people have buyer's remorse? What we're seeing unfolding right now shouldn't be surprising, because Trump said this is what he was going to do, and now he's doing it. What's your temperature take on what's happening? And I know Latino is a broad term that applies to tons of different people, but I ask you to address it as a Chicano right now in this city.
Well, one thing people should know is that of the exit polls, 60% of Mexicans went for Kamala Harris. Cubans, 60% of them went for Trump. This is why you have to break up the Latino population the way it is. There are black Latinos, white Latinos, a lot of indigenous Latinos, and a lot of people, mixed up. They're not a monolith, as everybody has said, and we constantly being put that way. I noticed that the mass media was targeting just pro-Trump Latinos in interviews. They didn't ever interview me. They never interviewed the anti-Trump Latinos. They kept interviewing, and I think it just kind of put more of a wedge between already the issues between black and brown people. I think that's why I don't think people should fall into that wedge. They shouldn't escalate that. Most Latinos, and most Mexicans anyway, voted against Trump. The biggest problem I saw wasn't so much who voted, who didn't vote, was the fact that a lot of people didn't vote, because I think that was a big problem. The Democrats couldn't pull the people through. Some Democrats voted for Trump, and then there's a lot of people that just decided not to vote. That was a big problem, because he didn't really get that big of a number. He just happened to have a slightly more number than Kamala Harris. I mention all this to point out that the fragmentation to me is real, and we need to help stop it. An integrated, broadly disciplined response, black and brown, including white people who can join us, Asians, has to be now our goal and aim. We have to have an end game here. That means we're actually going to push back against this fascist that tide that's here, but also to reconsider what we're going to have. I don't think it's going back to the pendulum swing, Republicans now and then Democrats later. I think we have to renew everything. We have to think about a new foundation, a regeneration of politics and economy. That's what I'm calling for now. Let's renew and regenerate a new economy and a new politics and fight for a new America.
Luis Rodriguez, we thank you for your call and for your sharing your insights. We thank you, more importantly, for your work and witness down through the years. An honor to have you on this program. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good to have you on. Let me move swiftly now to Ruben Navarrete Jr. Our phones are getting backed up. I have all kinds of folk calling in the last hour of this 3-hour special here on KBLA Talk for 1080 as Donald Trump has deployed National Guards troops to the city of Los Angeles. And as Dominique reported earlier, actually James Farr first mentioned this to us. There are ICE officers we know on the ground right now in Pasadena. So this thing is spreading out, and we're far from over here in Southern California fighting the federal government, these ICE agents, and the Trump administration. I digress on that point for now. Ruben Navarrete Jr. is the most widely read Latino columnist in the nation. He's a contributor to my national program. Honored to have him on this special right about now. Ruben, how are you, sir?
Brother Tavis, always great to be with you.
It's good to have you on. I'm surrounded by a number of my colleagues, Adrian Shropshire, Dion Raymond, Nee Quarterly Corte, Dominic DePrima. I'll get the first question, and then we'll pass it to Nee Quarterly. Let me just ask a broad question, and then we'll narrow it as we move forward here, Ruben. So you and I have discussed these issues for 30-plus years. Ruben and I we've been brothers for 30-plus years. We were the first black and brown radio team in the country. 30-plus years ago, we were on the air here in L.A. and, again, made history as the first black and brown brothers on radio talking about these kinds of issues. I've been thinking for the last couple of days about all the conversations we've had over those 3 decades about this very issue. Yep. I never imagined in my lifetime or your lifetime we'd be witnessing in real time what we're seeing here in L.A. We've talked to the mayor, we've talked to the city attorney, we've talked to everybody over the last couple hours. But that said, just give me a sense, broadly speaking, of what you're feeling, what you're sensing. You are, of course, a Latino. Right. You write about these issues. Talk to me from the heart.
So a couple of things going on. First of all, as you know, I'm the grandson of a Mexican immigrant who came to the country legally during the Mexican Revolution because people couldn't come illegally until after the Revolution. My father was a cop for 37 years. I grew up in a law enforcement family. I am consistent in my views, whether we're talking about white protesters on January 6th assaulting the Capitol or protesters in Los Angeles or Phoenix or Dallas or anywhere else. You don't assault cops. You don't attack cops. I think that Trump and his ilk were much too soft on the January 6th protesters who attacked police officers there. So, you know, I think I've been consistent on all of that, and I always have been. This is a difficult day for me, and here's why. It's a difficult day because you're talking about, not just because you're talking about occupied Los Angeles, because you're talking about, and I'll use this word, an invasion by the federal government and a trampling of the sovereignty on Los Angeles, putting local police department, LAPD, in a very tough spot. If they're sworn to protect and serve, at this point, they ought to be protecting protesters and Angelenos against the federal government. And that's an interesting place to be. But here's the reason it puts me in a tough spot. I am first and foremost a federalist. I believe in a strong federal government. The reason I do is because long before you and I met, when I was in college, I majored in American history. And I fell in love with the civil rights movement. I learned about the civil rights movement from two people, from Mike Hyatt, who taught me a course at the college, at Harvard College, on the civil rights movement, got an A. And then I learned about it from our mutual friend, Randy Kennedy, at the law school, when I took a course as an undergraduate at the law school, got a B+ in his class. And in both those places, brother, here's what I learned. When the federal government squares off against a locality, whether it's Alabama or Birmingham or whatever, the federal government ought win. It ought triumph. It ought come up on top. The Federal Supremacy Clause says that when federal officials clash with local officials, the federal government takes precedent. Having said that, now we arrive today, here, where the levers of the federal government are in the hands of someone who has dictatorial impulses, clearly. And my sympathies are not with the federal government today. They're not with the Trump administration. I've been a never Trumper since day one. So this is a difficult day for me to sort all that out because Under normal circumstances, I would feel much more obliged to side with the federal government. And in fact, let me put a final exclamation on this point. During the Biden administration, one of the big failures of Joe Biden, okay, this was a clueless, gutless, feckless president who failed. And if you want to know why Latinos didn't vote for Biden, well, there's a bunch of reasons right there. He failed in 2024, early 2024, to do what Trump is doing now. He had the opportunity to federalize the Texas National Guard and take over the Texas National Guard and put Greg Abbott in his proper place as governor because they were creating havoc on the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas. I said he ought to do that. So did Representative Joaquin Castro and others. We wrote columns. We put it in black and white. You need to federalize the Texas National Guard now. And President Biden didn't do it. Guess what? President Biden didn't listen to me. Unfortunately, Donald Trump did.
But go ahead, Nicole. I got to follow up myself. You can go first.
No, you want to
no, please go first.
So, and good morning, Ruben. I'm trying to figure out. So, how do you square this? You're a Republican, and
no, I'm not. Stop right there. I'm gonna stop. Stop that right there, doctor. I'm gonna stop you right now. I'm not a Republican. I just love beating the hell out of Democrats.
Okay, so
he's in the center. His podcast is called Ruben in the Center, so he's in the center, whatever that means these days.
I also love beating the hell out of Republicans. I really, at this point, I got to be honest with you. After covering politics for 35 years, maybe that's longer than you've been doing it, I hate both parties.
Okay. Well,
I can't tell them apart most days.
So my question is, I mean, for folks who have more of a conservative bend, we'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. Is that fair, Ruben?
Yes, there are conservatives.
Okay. So you have a conservative bend. It seems that conservatives are trying to have it both ways. I hear you talk about being a federalist, but I also hear conservatives talking about state rights, and it depends on what issue. You spin the wheel, and on certain issues, states' rights first. On other other issues, I'm pro-federalist. That's what we're hearing from conservatives. I am really concerned that conservative members of Congress have ceded so much of their power and so much of their authority to the executive branch that it may be beyond repair. Do you see it that way?
Yes, I do. And I think there's a bunch of folks out there, folks who run a website called The Bulwark or The Dispatch, never Trumpers. I think Republicans don't hate liberals nearly as much as they hate the never Trump Republicans. If you want to see some real hate, the MAGA hates the Bill Kristols of the world. They hate the David Frenches of the world. They hate people, Benko Medved. They hate a lot of these folks who are Republicans who are never Trumpers and bash on Trump. Now, let me say, when you say it spins the wheel, and depending on the day, they're very, very inconsistent. The conservatives are all over the place. 100% right, but guess who's also like that? The liberals. Because when I woke up last week, I was hearing liberals say, when they had the levers of federal government, that Texas and other states like Texas were rogue states, they had to be pulled into line, and all of a sudden that the shoe's on the other foot, you're singing a different song, right? It's many times. I mean, I guess the clearest example of this is how the political parties feel about executive power. Executive orders. Well, all of a sudden Democrats hate executive orders, but they didn't hate executive orders when Barack Obama was issuing them, or Joe Biden, or Bill Clinton. I'm struck by the fact that the strongest presidents in my lifetime, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, all served 2 terms, right? And they were all strong presidents. And the weak presidents, George H.W. Bush, Gerald Ford, Joe Biden, Jimmy Carter, they were weaker presidents, and they didn't get a second term. So, again, I hate both parties, but if you're honest and you're not a Democrat and you're not looking at this as a liberal Democrat, the parties are remarkably similar.
Can I just ask you just a quick follow-up? And you point out the use of executive power. It's important for our leaders, learners, and listeners for them to understand the difference between lawful and unlawful executive orders. There are so many of these that are tied up in the courts, and so just because a president is issuing an executive order doesn't mean that it's lawful. But I want to go back to your roots. You mentioned that you are the son.
Let me say that before you do that. Let me off before you say lawful. Wait, let me just say this to that point about being lawful. You know who decides what lawful means? A judge or judges. And depending on the ruling, depending on whether you have conservatives or liberals on a court, they decide They decide what lawful means.
Yeah.
So that's why we have judges to decide things.
Well, a constitution decides what's lawful and what's unlawful.
But then,
And who
the
interprets the
executive
Constitution?
branch
Those two
has to
judges.
comply with what the courts say, and we're not seeing that at the moment.
That's right. But I wanted to go back
Absolutely.
to your roots. You mentioned that you are the son
Son of a cop, yeah.
of a cop. And right now, we are witnessing what looks like the militarization of law enforcement here in the city of Los Angeles. There are reports of a Black Hawk helicopter landing near a DHS office, unloading ammunition. What say you about this? Do you see this as provoking we the people? And how should local leaders respond if, in fact, we see federal authorities use force against we the people?
So I don't see, as to the first point, I don't really see this as the militarizing of police. I see the concept of militarizing the police. That's 30 years old. We've been militarizing the police for 30 years. The minute that the LAPD decided it needed a tank, that it needed, to buy, like many police departments, they got leftover military equipment, helicopters and the like. I have police officer friends who've schooled me on this over the years, and they don't believe that you should be militarizing our police forces. But you can go to little, small, rinky-dink police forces in the Midwest, and they've got tanks from the military, right? And they've got automatic weapons, and they've got riot gear, and they've been militarized for some time, having nothing to do with Donald Trump. What I see this is really a crisis, a federalism crisis. It's about the federal government intervening, not just through ICE, but through FBI. Now we see other agencies also getting involved versus local police. We may see a standoff at some point between the LAPD and some federal officers because the LAPD are sworn to protect and serve.
Hey,
This is a co-opting of that kind of power.
I got another guest on the line, Ruben. I want to get to quick. Let me a quick exit question, and you and I we continue to fight this out on my program this week when you come on. But
I don't think we're fighting. There's not much to fight about.
No, we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight about this though. We're gonna fight about this week on my show. Let me tell you what it is now. I'm gonna tee it up now. We're gonna fight about this. I cannot believe, and again, Ruben and I have been friends for 30 years. It's important to hear his perspective for two reasons. Because there are Latinos, in fact, who feel the same way that Ruben feels. There's a reason he's the most widely read Latino columnist in the country. He's not the only one. We talked earlier about all those numbers of Hispanics who voted for Donald Trump. So we can turn our nose up at his point of view if we disagree with it, but this is as real as rain. There are folk who actually feel this way. Here's my exit question right quick. How can you argue now, not then? I'll give you some leeway on making that argument then that Biden should have federalized those persons, those authorities in Texas then. But when you see how Donald Trump is showing up in California right now, when you see what they're doing in Los Angeles right now, in this moment, you're not rethinking what would have happened if Biden had, in fact, done that then?
It would have been messy, no question. But the
messy,
idea, the example I had in my head was what happened.
That's your word, messy?
No, let me finish.
Okay.
I would say that the example I had in my mind in 2024 when I thought that Biden should do this was obviously the best use of the National Guard ever was when John F. Kennedy federalized the National Guard in Alabama, used them to remove George Wallace from the schoolhouse gate at the University of Alabama. That's when the president says, "Oh, you think the National Guard belongs to you, Governor? Let me show you it belongs to me." So in that line, with that, again, historical memory as an American history major, in my mind, what Randy Kennedy taught me, I thought it was a good thing.
I just don't think we'll continue on my show later in the week. Thank you for your phone call. Thank you for your insights. I just don't see how anybody on a day like today could still argue for the federalizing of troops, given what we're witnessing in L.A. right now. I digress, Dominique.
Yes, indeed. We can argue about that on my show, too, tomorrow if y'all want to call. But we're being
I want some, too.
We're being joined now by the Executive Director of Black Alliance for Just Immigration. She's a longtime civil rights attorney, Nana Gyamfi. Welcome. Attorney Gyamfi, are you there?
Oh, we lost
I am.
Oh, there she is.
There she is.
Yeah,
I'm here.
okay.
Yeah, it sounds like a long night for you. We were referencing early in the program about whether this is a black issue or not a black issue. What are you hearing in terms of the arrests or harassment of Haitians or people of African descent, black migrants here in the Los Angeles area right now?
So it's very interesting. We're still trying to get and still working and contacting our folks on the ground and getting information in. You don't have the same numbers, obviously, as non-Black, Latino, Latinx people in this country, in this city. And so we aren't hearing the same kind of numbers, but we are hearing about people getting caught up in those places where we have the connection. So, for example, in the Inglewood, in the Comptons, in those places where you find that Black and brown folks are living together. And I think that that's going to increase as we hear about the National Guard and ICE and all these other federal cops going into areas that are outside of outside of the city and the county. And we're trying to warn folks that you're going to start seeing folks in Gardena, you're going to start seeing folks in Hawthorne, you're going to start right in these other places that maybe people don't think about as much, Wilmington and Linwood, right, places like that. But then as we see protests that are going to be happening, there's one today, there's one happening tomorrow that are going to be downtown L.A., then we start to be concerned about our community members that live in those areas, whether they're housed or unhoused, that are Black migrant. And, let me just say quickly that we also have to be concerned in terms of African Americans. I mean, I've said this before, speaking with you, Dominique, as well as Adrian. There is no reason for African Americans to feel like, whew, I'm in the clear. These folks are grabbing people first and asking questions later. And there's no African American walking around here with some special look. There's someone that is from some other country that got the same look as you. And, we need to be concerned.
And what are you telling people to do at this point? I mean, what do you, if you're approached by ICE or if you see someone else approached by ICE and we're seeing citizens blocking cars and different things like that, as an attorney and an immigrant rights activist, what are you advising people to do or not do?
So I think the first thing in terms of your rights, and it's funny because someone just asked me just before I got on here, like, what is the purpose of knowing your rights? The purpose of knowing your rights is so that you can protect yourself from your own darn self, who's going to be talking, who's going to be trying to get out of stuff, who's going to be trying to turn over information and do whatever you can do to squirrel out. It doesn't stop the behavior of cops, whether they be LAPD or whether they be ICE, but it does protect you in terms of keeping you from doing things you shouldn't be doing. It's good to know so you can yell to others. If you see me getting hemmed up, yell to me, because in that moment I might forget all of my rights. So make sure that you know what we call the freedom mantras to be able to have that on board. And I think that people need to be clear about the risk. I'm one that says I don't want to stop people from doing things because people may not feel comfortable. You can go to jail for doing that because we would still be enslaved, right? Like you would never be free. We would not have the civil rights movement involve civil disobedience. So that doesn't bother me. But I do think that people need to be clear about the risk. This is not 2017 Trump. This is not the days when you can just call, and then they'll get them out and they'll let you out of jail. Throw that in the trash. These are the days where people are being run over by vans, which they were doing before, but it's going to be much more possible. These are days in which you will be charged, probably in federal court, as they tried to do with Mayor Ras Baraka, as they're doing now with Congresswoman McIver. They won't depend on the DA. They won't depend on the city attorney. It'll be federal charges. So people need to understand the risk. And then if they choose to take that risk, at least we know we're doing it with that understanding.
We're going to bring in Gerlene Joseph, who's with the Haitian Bridge Alliance, into this conversation in just a moment. But Adrian, I know you got a question you wanted to ask first.
I wanted to, Nana, I'm a big fan of the 4 freedom mantras. And I think to Dominique's question of what do people need to know right now, can I just ask you, and I know I've done this many times before, if you can just tell us what those 4 freedom mantras are so that people have them if they personally need them or if they see something going down, to your point, that they can yell to folks.
Absolutely. So the 4 freedom mantras. The first mantra is, am I free to leave? Just because someone has grabbed you doesn't mean, first of all, that they're even law enforcement, but secondly, that you are not free to leave. And so you need to ask that question. See if you can create separation between you and them. If they say yes, leave. If they say no, you are in custody. Then your next two things, if you're in custody, are to say, I want my attorney. I don't want to talk to you. Got to make that clear off the top. I don't want to talk to you. You have a right to remain silent, and you need to let them know I want to remain silent. I want my attorney. If for some reason they keep asking you questions after that, those questions can be thrown out. And as a 30-year criminal defense attorney who's worked with so many others, cases get thrown out on that basis. And I do not consent to any search. So am I free to leave? I don't want to talk to you. I want my attorney. I do not consent to a search. Do not sign anything. And if you want information on how to prepare in case people are picked up, what do you do with your kids? What do you do with your bank accounts? What do you do? Go to Baji's website, baji.org. We have a whole kit for you that includes forms and is in various languages, English, French, Haitian Creole, Amharic, Tigrinya, Arabic, and other languages. Get with us, and we will certainly get with you.
I want to welcome into this conversation Guerline Joseph. She is a leading human rights advocate, thought leader, and strategist. She is with the Haitian Bridge Alliance. Guerline, welcome to the show.
Good morning, good afternoon, beloved. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here. So much of what is happening here in Los Angeles and so many cities across the country is happening at the intersection of immigration and policing. And we know that black folks are impacted by both of those issues disproportionately. What's your message to some of the Haitian immigrants who may not be as steeped in the history of policing here in the United States, but are certainly feeling surveilled and are certainly feeling picked on by our federal government? What's your message to Haitian immigrants that we can all glean from?
Thank you so much. And before that, I'd like to say thank you to my dear sister, Nana, who continues to push back and push forward with all of us. And really, what I tell people most of the time is, this morning I woke up a Haitian American woman, a black woman in the United States. I cannot remove my immigration background from my black identity growing up in the U.S. And my first witnessing of anti-black racism was Abner Wima laying on the bed, and my father took me to see him at 12 years old, understanding police brutality when it comes to black people in the United States. They do not ask you where you're from. They don't listen for your accent, and they come for all of us. Just want to clarify that, right? And then when it comes to immigration specifically for Haitians and other black immigrants from Cameroon, from Eritrea, many different African countries, is right now we are at risk. We are double criminalized. First of all, we will be stopped because we are Haitians. We will be stopped because we are black, right? And we cannot hide. They will see. They will stop. They will detain. As a matter of fact, one of the people who was detained in L.A. is a family, a father. His wife just gave birth 2 weeks ago. And they both went to court. They followed the law. They did everything that the U.S. government has asked of them. And they went to court, and he was kidnapped, and the wife was forced to go home with the baby without him. And he most likely will be deported. And keep in mind that they fled Haiti due to the current political turmoil that are in part a direct result of U.S. foreign policies towards Haiti. To really understand that people need to be extra vigilant, and they need to express the 4 freedoms that Nana just mentioned. They have to understand they have the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, the right to be able to do all of those. But one thing we are seeing right now is that the government is taking away the due process when it comes to immigration. There are due process that are afforded by the Constitution that are not being respected. So these are the issues we are dealing with right now, in addition to the president on Wednesday or Thursday bringing in a new travel ban. And out of those 12 countries, there are 8 majority black-led countries that are unable to travel to the United States right now. Yeah. So we really need to make sure when we are addressing immigration, we are understanding that it is rooted in anti-black racism, and we have to make clear that we understand the type of people they want in this country, and we have to make sure we also educate our communities collectively to understand that we are stronger together, and the black diaspora must stand together.
Ms. Joseph, this is Tavis Smiley, and we were talking earlier on our program. We've been at this for 2.5 hours now, another 30 minutes to go in this KBLA Talk 1580 special, given that Donald Trump has, in fact, deployed troops, National Guard troops here in Southern California, in L.A. to be specific. We know, we reported earlier, there are ICE agents literally on the ground right now in Pasadena, in the Altadena area. And so this long nightmare is far from over. But we were talking earlier in this show today about fear and how palpable the fear is here in Los Angeles amongst the Hispanic community, the Latino community. Is it the same in the Haitian community? Is the fear palpable? Can you smell? Can you sense the fear amongst Haitians right about now?
Travis, I smell it, I see it, I experience it every single day, and it's even more so for the black immigrant community, because we are extremely invisible, but at the same time hyper-visibilized, right? So we are seeing right now, especially the Haitian community, we are under attack. The government has removed CPS for Haiti, leaving close to 500,000 people who are documented, who are here legally. They are removing the legal status of people from Haiti. In addition to that, last Friday, the government revoked CHNV parole program. That is a parole program that was put in place by the U.S. government, where a sponsor in the United States will apply for a relative, a friend, a family who is in Haiti. They came into the U.S. Over 200,000 Haitians came here legally, follow every single rule the United States government has put in front of them. And last Friday, the U.S. government once again pulled the rug from underneath them, rendering them undocumented overnight. So within the Haitian communities only, just the Haitian community, we have over 500,000 people that were here legally, quote unquote, because they're all talking about people coming here legally, etc. That's what they want. But the people who came here legally, the government had removed the legal status. And the government also just canceled CPS for Cameroon. We are looking into people from Sudan, people from Ethiopia, whose lives are in the balance. And a lot of those communities are in the heart of Los Angeles. I live in Orange County. I live in Southern California. I have an office in San Diego. We are in the community, the black immigrant community, the diaspora community, and we are feeling the trauma, the terror, the stress. Let me tell you, Travis, we have people who are having heart attacks, stroke, stress-induced illness, children who are unable to go to school because they are afraid when they come back home, their mothers will not be there, their fathers will not be there.
I want to follow up, Attorney Nana Gyamfi, with Dr. Nicolai-Cortez' question about the intersection of immigration and policing. Specifically here in Los Angeles, we have our so-called sanctuary policies, and yet we still are seeing the engagement of the sheriffs and the LAPD, even though they're making the distinction that they're just there to protect property and direct traffic, or that they're not actually supporting ICE. Talk a little bit more about that overlap, that intersection. Attorney Gyamfi?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
we hear you now. We hear you.
It's really important to say, with respect to LA, And we're seeing this. We're in all the other places what they call sanctuary cities, but focusing on our LA and really drilling down. 76% of black immigrants who are deported from California, and including LA County, are deported because of contact with the police. And so even though these places are supposed to be sanctuary, police contact, whether that be, things having to do with traffic, whether it has to do with petty theft, I mean, these crimes do not have to, violations don't have to be anything major, are a major reason that black immigrants get deported. And therefore, we're not just afraid of La Migra. We are also concerned about the police. The police feature in our minds as a potential reason that we get deported. When we saw the executive order unleashing law enforcement, which we knew was a nod to law enforcement that was willing to be unleashed on the state level and then the local level, but also was about this federal militarization, et cetera, that Travis, you brought up, and others, we understood as Baji that black migrants are going to be experiencing an unleashing in terms of this local law enforcement. And I've been saying this and speaking this with immigrant rights folks and movement folks at the highest levels of leadership, that they need to continue. We need to put heat on LAPD and on the Sheriff's Department, because they will be supportive of what's happening with, Tavis, my brain. That we will be. Sorry, my brain is gone.
No, I've been happening. I've been called worse. Don't worry about it.
I know. We will be. We will be targeted, right? And when we're targeted, the police are who they send, and they are not, as the prior person described, protecting the citizens against ICE. That is absolutely not what's happening. Mm-hmm. They are grabbing people. They are part of arresting people. They are part of pushing people. They are the backup singers. They're the pips for ICE, the FBI, and all of them. And so we've got to be clear about that and not be confused about that, because when we confuse our people, we put them in danger. Just like that National Guard is going to start with immigrants, and we know full well who it's going to end up with: black people, regardless of citizenship. We cannot let naivete on the part of the immigrant rights movement get black folks caught up.
Adrian Shropshire.
Ask you about for the Haitian community and other black immigrant communities, this idea of being able to identify and find safe places. So we know that when Nana was just referring to this in terms of targeting, we know that we have seen the elimination of places that folks have historically been able to feel safe in, right? Whether those are schools, right, or churches. We know that has been eliminated. And so I'm wondering how the community is feeling right now in terms of the elimination of those spaces and feeling under siege, and particularly because we've seen ICE go into schools. I'm just wondering how the community is feeling about that kind of pressure and not having any safe places to be able to go to.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. The reality is less people are leaving the home. I went to church this morning, and I would say about a third of them didn't come. These are people who might have a family member who is still going through the immigration process. And because of the fear and the trauma and the terror, people are unfortunately being forced to stay home and not being able to go to church, to school, or even go to the store. And one thing we also see that they are using the immigrants as a scapegoat to get into more in depth of what they have, the goal, the end goal, right? It's not just immigrants, it's DEI, it's erasure of black identity, it's erasure of the people that we know have fought for us in order to be here. So they are using immigrants, and now, unfortunately, the churches are half empty. Now we are heading into the summer vacation, so we might not see the impact on the school. But when school reopens, we will see how many children are not going to school because they have been separated or had been forced to flee, or their parents were deported. So the toll will be extreme once we started seeing really where we are heading. It's only been 3 weeks since the increased number of ICE officers masked in plain clothes outside of and inside of the court, where people are going to see the judge to follow the rules, and they are being kidnapped, disappeared, and most of the time their families don't even know what happens to them. So people are afraid. They're not going to church. They're not going to school. They're not going to the store. We are under siege, and a lot of trauma is what we are experiencing in the communities right now.
Gerline Joseph, Executive Director of Haitian Bridge Alliance, thank you so much for being with us. Attorney Nana Gyamfi, Executive Director of Black Alliance for Just Immigration, so much appreciation for you both, the work that you're doing, and for checking in with us this morning. Thank you.
It's great to have you both on. Nicola, you were just showing me that Bernie Sanders has just spoken out. We were talking earlier in this program today. We're in the last 20 minutes of this program. We've been back and forth with the sheriff's office. I don't believe in false advertising. The sheriff has been on the street. We are told he's in a briefing now. He's trying to get out of that briefing to get to us before we wrap here at the top of the hour. If we don't get him on today, trust me, we got all kind of shows for him to appear on this week, including Dominique and Nicola. So we'll get him on if we don't give him the next 20 minutes here. But Bernie Sanders has made a statement, and we were talking earlier with Dr. West, as I recall, about he called milquetoast. So many members of Congress who have not stepped up, certainly on the right. They have not chin-checked Donald Trump at all on anything, much less what he's doing right about now. They seem to take some sick delight in watching the way that Donald Trump shows up. But what did Bernie Sanders have to say?
So Bernie Sanders, in response just this morning, said, quotes, he does not believe in the Constitution. He does not believe in the rule of law. That's what he told CNN's Dana Bash this morning, speaking about Trump on State of the Union. He went on to say, my understanding is that the governor of California, the mayor of the city of Los Angeles, did not request the National Guard, but he thinks he has the right to do anything he wants. I think it's a very important point that Senator Sanders is making, and that our leaders, learners, and listeners understand here on the ground in Los Angeles very clearly, is that neither the governor nor the mayor requested the National Guard. Mm-hmm. And typically that is the process. You know, a mayor, a governor will put in a request for the president to send out the National Guard. That did not happen. Donald Trump took it upon himself to do that. I think it's also worth pointing out that all of this is happening in a moment where Congress is working on the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Mm-hmm. We know there are so many nuggets in that bill that would absolutely devastate our communities. When we talk about the severe cuts to Medicaid, when we talk about how they look to restructure student loans, when we talk about so many issues that are critically important to our health and our housing and our safety. And so I'm worried that this exercise of unprecedented federal authority, unwelcome federal authority here on the ground in L.A., I'm worried that this may distract from another really awful piece of legislation that will unleash another type of devastation in our communities.
I've said any number of times, Adrian, over the course of my career, that Democrats oftentimes lose elections they ought not to even be close, right? I've seen Democrats just trip over themselves and lose elections that ought not to even be in the balance. But in this instance, I am wondering the exact opposite. Whether or not it is the case, as we have all speculated on our various shows, that at some point Donald Trump may just overplay his hand. At some point, he may just go too far. We all know in the days ahead there'll be all kind of politics coming out of this. I see it already. Nicola, I just quoted Bernie Sanders, the others who are slowly starting to speak up and speak out about what's happening here in L.A. But on the political front, I'm going to go straight to that. We've got 15 minutes left. Just talk politics here for a few minutes here. On the political front, what say you about the way that what Donald Trump is doing now may impact the midterms? What say you about the way that Democrats look at what he's doing now and frame this in a way that might be advantageous for them? You're the founder of the Black Pact. Talk to me.
Yeah, they better frame it that way, in a way that is advantageous to them. Because, I think that one of the things that and I think Trump has already overplayed his hand in many ways, whether we think of it with the tariffs, right? What are they, Trump always, what is it?
The Taco Tuesday event outside the RNC? Is that what you're referring to?
Again?
The Taco Tuesday PR stunt outside the RNC. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
So my point here is that he has overplayed his hand and he's gotten called out on it. I think that this idea that Dr. Nee, that he has taken upon himself to decide that Los Angeles needs to be occupied is a part of his dictatorial impulses, right? You're not going to let me invade Canada? Okay, I'm going to invade Greenland. You're not going to let me invade Greenland? Okay, I'm going to invade Panama. Oh, I can't invade Panama? I'm going to invade Los Angeles, right? So it really is this idea that he wants to be a strong man. He wants to find any opportunity to do so. And this has become his latest, I can show how many ever Marines that Hegseth is saying is, that are on standby. This is absurd, obviously. And Democrats have to figure out how they are clarifying what is happening, that they clarify that this is his dictator on day one announcement, right, when he was running for campaign. They have to clarify that for people. They need to figure out how to use, and I say they need to figure it out is because they're often so bad at this. This is so clear. It is so cut and dry. But they need to be on top of it, and many more of them need to be speaking out. Senator Sanders, that's great, but many more of them need to be speaking out, and they need to show up.
Just quickly wanted to report that the acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, is now blaming the LAPD, saying they took over 2 hours to respond on Friday. The LAPD is pushing back, saying their response time was impacted by traffic congestion, demonstrators, and the fact that federal agents had deployed irritants into the crowd, and that the federal agents did not inform them, as they would be the normal protocol, that they were planning these raids. So now you have the LAPD under fire from ICE, and it's going back and forth. My question. Okay. Let me table that for right now. I'm going back to Tavis Smiley.
No, you could have gone straight to the sheriff there. Sheriff Luna, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir. I am here. Good morning.
It's Tavis. How are you, sir?
Tavis, you know what? Happy Sunday to you and everyone else. Very busy this morning here at our Department Operations Center, just keeping a finger on the pulse of so much that's going on in our area in the last 48 hours.
I know you were busy, and we thank you again. Every time KBLA Talk 1580 calls you or I call you, you always show up, and I am appreciative of that. We started this special 3-hour program 2 hours and 45 minutes ago, talking to Karen Bass, the mayor. We talked to the city attorney as well and others. So we asked the mayor to tell us what she knew a couple hours ago. I understand you've just been in a briefing. To the extent you can you give us an update on what you know and what's happening in the city as we speak?
Well, as we speak now, we are paying a whole lot of attention to any protest that may be occurring, whether it's in the city of Los Angeles or for us in the county of Los Angeles. Jim McDonnell and I are in constant communication just to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. And I want to reiterate to everybody, we encourage First Amendment activity. People want to protest. They absolutely have a right to do so. There's a lot of issues, challenges out there, so get out there. But please, if you go out there, the message gets diluted, man. Once the violence starts, destruction of property, that's where we have to get involved and bring order back to chaos that's happening right now.
What do you say to people? I want to yield to my colleague Dominic DePrima here in just a second for a question she wants to ask Sheriff Luna. But let me just ask you what you say to people. Your suggestion notwithstanding, and we all concur with that. But there are people right now who are just afraid. They are afraid to step out, to exercise their First Amendment right to free speech. What do you say as our sheriff to those persons who are afraid to exercise that right in real time?
I think it's a legitimate concern. I am not going to say that that's not a real thing, but we're from Los Angeles, and we've dealt with this for so many years. We need to stick together. If you need to go out and do your business, go out and do it. Make sure for our community members, I'm telling people, carry your identification, carry your proof of citizenship, understand your rights if you are contacted by authorities in any way. And here's something very, very important. If you do end up having a contact that turns into some kind of confrontation, my thing is comply. Do whatever you can to comply, and then document what's going on, and then complain later. Don't get in a confrontation with either law enforcement, either at a local level or at a federal level. And I'm really hoping that things start working out. I know that's easier said than done, but we're in this together, and we're going to get through this together.
I know you stepped out of a briefing just to jump on this call with us, and we are deeply grateful. A quick question from Dominique DePrima, and we'll let you go.
Well, as an observant and myself being an activist as well, it's hard to see the credibility in these ideas of sanctuary policies for cities when it appears that the Sheriff's Department and the LAPD are backing up ICE in arresting, containing, terrorizing our citizens.
Yeah, that's a legitimate question, but just for clarity for all of our community members, we at the Sheriff's Department do not participate in civil ICE immigration enforcement. That's not what we do. We have enough of our own business to take care of in protecting our communities. But this is where I emphasize that if you have federal law enforcement officers here, and whether we agree or disagree with what they're doing, if they end up calling for help because they are violently being attacked, we as law enforcement have to go in there and assist. Just like if you or anybody, one of your neighbors, is calling because you're violently being attacked, we don't have a choice. We have to go in there and we have to assist. But there's a clear delineation between what the federal partners do in their role and what we're doing in our role. But my main message there is, do not attack federal law enforcement. Do not attack local law enforcement. But that doesn't mean you can't protest. You cannot make your voices heard loud and clear. We support that part of it.
No, and we support you. I don't think anybody in this studio at least disagrees with that point. We don't want people attacking law enforcement any more than we want law enforcement attacking peaceful protesters. Sheriff, I know you got to run. One final quick question from Dr. Corte.
Sheriff Luna, this morning, Newsweek reporting an unverified video from Channel 7 showed a helicopter landing in Paramount near the Department of Homeland Security office Saturday at 5:45 p.m. They reportedly were offloading boxes of ammunition, less lethal weaponry, tanks with flammable labels on the side. What can you tell us at this hour? Can you verify that there was ammunition that was brought to L.A. County? Did this come up during your briefing? And what guidance do you offer to the people in the event that there is a conflict with weapons from federal authorities?
Yeah. So in regards to the helicopter, in the briefing I just had, that very issue did come up. My limited understanding at this point that it was a helicopter from one of the federal agencies that came in to support the ground units that they had. What the contents were, I have not been able to verify exactly what that is at this point. As always, we're always concerned with the communication or the lack of communication between us and our federal partners, specifically when there's something that chaotic going on. I could tell you this, that we will be talking to them to find out exactly what happened. because I know some of my folks weren't exactly happy with the lack of communication.
Sheriff Luna, we are always grateful, as I say at the top of this conversation, for you coming on this station, KBLA Talk 1580, especially today with all that is on your agenda. But we appreciate you honoring your commitment to talk to our audience for a few moments, and we'll do it again down the road. Thank you, sir, for your time.
And God bless all of you, and let's keep on working together. Let's do it peacefully and find a resolution to a lot of the things that are going on. But we need to communicate and stick together.
Thank you for your time, Sheriff Luna. All the best to you, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff Luna. I wanted to talk to my colleague, Attorney Dion Raymond, about what's happening on the ground with protesters, right? Because we've talked about migrants, but there's a lot of black people and other people who might or might not be migrants showing up in support and solidarity. And we've seen the terrorizing, we've seen the criminalizing of student protesters, activists in general, people getting their green cards revoked, et cetera, et cetera. What advice do you give to folks who are protesting today? There's one at 2 o'clock downtown LA, and I imagine they'll continue as long as these raids continue.
That's a very good question, Dominique. The tension and the energy it's so palpable, and there's so much turn up right now. And I think that one of the best things that folks can do is to be intelligent about how they show up. We've heard time and time again that it's important to not be violent and to peacefully protest. However, we know that the Trump administration is coming down hard, and survival and protection is a natural instinct. And we know that the mainstream media is not going to cast this in a way that is necessarily truthful, honest, or direct. I participated in a lot of protests, Dominique, back in the day over apartheid, and I can recall going to the South African consulate. And at one point, and it was peaceful and it was quiet, and at one point they descended into that room with riot gear and dogs. And we all knew instinctually that, the wrong twitch, the wrong look, it was going to go down, and it wasn't going to be good. And so we do want to live to fight another day. So I would say mindfully.
On your point of being mindful, being peaceful, Mayor Karen Bass just posted a statement just minutes ago saying this morning President Trump deployed the National Guard into Los Angeles. Deploying federalized troops on the heels of these raids is a chaotic escalation. The mayor goes on to say that the fear that people are feeling in our city right now is very real. It's felt in our communities and within our families, and it puts our neighborhoods at risk. This is the last thing that our city needs, and I urge protesters to remain peaceful. She mentioned she's been in touch this morning with immigrant rights leaders as well as local law enforcement officials. LA will always stand with everyone who calls our city home.
I don't think this person wants me to mention their name, but one of these politicos who I respect immensely has said to me on a private text, "It's all about political sweepstakes, Tavis. California is a very big prize, and Trump wants to own it, particularly at a time of leading Democrats being so vulnerable on the one hand and ineptness on the other." We got 2 minutes left. I want to give everybody 30 seconds, including Dion, Adrian, Dominique, and Nicola. Here's our exit question. Adrian, in 30 seconds, right quick. In a moment like this, I called it the dark night, the dark side of America. How are you sustaining your hope right now?
We just had this incredible tour that came to Los Angeles, the State of the People Power Tour. We were at the Seed School in L.A. and out in Pasadena yesterday. And what I saw was people who are very clear about what is happening in this country and very committed to making sure that cities like ours are protected across the country. And so I'm hopeful because I believe in black people. And I know that we will, as we always have, carry us across.
Less than 30 seconds. Nicola, how are you standing your hope, sir?
I, too, was at the State of the People Power Tour in Pasadena just yesterday, and we keep us safe, as my colleague Dominic DePrima and so many others remind us. Look, we have an opportunity to renew a social compact with one another. It's going to take some imagination. It's going to take some courage. We're seeing demonstrations of that. I am encouraged by that. I hope our leaders, learners, and listeners are as well.
Dion Raymond, how you sustaining your hope?
We've been through this. We've been through worse. We've been through this before. We will get through it again by mindfulness, using our intelligence, our spirituality. We've got to stay informed, and I'm so grateful that we have a resource in KBLA just for that.
I got a tight 30 seconds, Dominique DePrima.
Yeah, I sustain my hope by remembering that we have to be fearless. I'll quote my godmother, the late Audre Lorde, I am intentional and afraid of nothing. We have to remember to be fearless. We have to give each other courage, and we have to organize. That's why I'll be at the Center for Black Power today with Black Lives Matter Grassroots having an emergency organizing meeting.
Dominique went Audre Lorde. I'll go MLK. Cowardice ask, is it safe? Expediency ask, is it politic? Conscience ask, is it right? And every now and then we must take positions that are neither safe, comfortable, nor convenient. But we do it because our conscience tells us that it is right. If our consciences, individually and collectively, in this moment don't tell us that pushing back against this nonsense is right, I shudder for this country. God help us all. Thank you for tuning in to this 3-hour very special program here on KBLA Talk 1580 as Donald Trump is now deployed the National Guard in L.A. We will now return to regularly scheduled programming, as we like to say in radio. But tomorrow, starting at 6 a.m. with First Things First, tune in to KBLA all day long for the latest on what's happening here in our city. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in to KBLA.